Well, good morning. I am thrilled to be sharing with you this morning, and um, only only my heart would want to come across today like a brother who is challenging, but sitting beside you, not across the table pointing at you. I want to come alongside you, and I want to open your eyes to the need to grow in the area of empathy. uh, this morning I'm going to talk about what your addiction does to your spouse, understanding the damage that you caused when you chose to go in this direction, and just really helping you see things through your spouse's eyes a little more. And so this will be a hard talk to listen to, because I'm asking you to man up and listen and be responsible for the collateral damage or the direct damage that you have done to your marriage, your spouse, your family. And remember that I just had 11 hours with 10 women and 4 therapists this weekend in the Purge event, and which is Partner Encouragement Recovery Group Experience, which is all about helping these women sort out and deal with what they have to carry because your addiction has really impacted them. And so for those guys that are single, you want to listen to this because you want to deal with your addiction so you never need to put your wife through this. Those guys who have already done a great job in recovery and have their wife tracking with them a little more, you need to be grateful that you've done some good work and you have things rekindled. And the rest of you who have your spouse in some position of distance, frustration, anger, hurt, or whatever, and you are early in your recovery, and maybe it's not even consistent yet, maybe you haven't really worked through the addiction, and some guys may still be denying it's not that big a deal, or I don't have a problem, or whatever. And so, boy, there's a lot of work ahead then. But so because you're at different places, make sure you listen and apply what God is speaking to you about, and take and learn and grow. So this last weekend, on the Friday night especially, we talk about how your addiction has impacted your spouse. And we talk about their reactions to that. That's all we do. It's all about assessing where they're at. It's about them feeling. It's about them articulating how they've been hurt, and the different ways that your addiction has hurt them. And again, I shouldn't be amazed, but again, I was just taken back by the massive amount of hurt in that boardroom at our office. I just, oh my goodness. And I warn the people that are there, don't borrow someone else's pain. You got enough of your own. But it's they're hurting, and they can identify with one another, and then they start taking on the other one's burdens and their hurts, and it magnifies their own if they're not careful. And so I continue to remind them, you have your pain to deal with. That's what you need to focus on. But collectively, the room was just it was like a hospital wing after there's been a massive explosion in a city, in a factory or something, and there's people all over and crowded in, and everybody's in tough place, and there's family members there wondering if their families are going to make it. And that's what it felt like. It felt like intensive care ward in a hospital with all kinds of hurts. And remember, the whole goal of discussing what your addiction has done to your spouse is for you to start to realize, one, the ramifications of your choices, and two, to start to move towards empathy. Because if you stay in some version of minimization, justification, lack of self-awareness, and it still is about you, you're likely not going to be in a very good place to be a recovery cohort with her. So I have 3 illustrations I'm going to use, and you decide which one works best for you. But on Friday night, I used this one, and it seemed to really, really help the girls. So your partner is in the car with you, and you are driving. The conditions are a little bit iffy, but you continue to put the pedal to the metal. You keep driving, and your partner warns you, hey, listen, I'm feeling a little bit afraid here. Maybe you should slow down. And no, I'm fine. No, I'm fine. It's all good. I got it. And whatever. And even in spite of her warning, you carelessly go into a corner a little bit too fast, and your car maybe starts to hydroplane or slip on the ice or whatever. And you lose it, and the car does a roll and then clips and does an endo, and then it ends up upside down in the ditch. And you don't have life-threatening injuries, but both you and your wife got breaks, got abrasions where stitches are. Maybe one's unconscious with a head injury, but they're not life-threatening. You're going to live. But here she is, upside down in a ditch, hanging by your seatbelt. You are doing the same. And this has happened because of your carelessness. This accident happened because of you didn't listen to warnings, or you didn't slow down. You thought you could handle it. You thought it was fine. And yet she is experiencing similar injuries and has to pay the price of recovery for something that she was not responsible for. And then I went on to say, sometimes it feels like for these partners that the ambulance pulls up and they rescue the driver because they knew there had to be a driver in the car, and they missed the fact that, and maybe he was unconscious, they missed the fact that there was a second person in the car that had been thrown, and she's laying in the ditch, and they drive away, helping this man with the regroup ambulance. And she's going, what, I'm over here. And she's broken and bleeding and laying in the ditch, and sometimes doesn't get the help that she needs. Wasn't her fault. Wasn't her carelessness. She was just a passenger in the car you were driving because she was partnered with you. But she now has all this massive work to do for recovery. A lot of women resonated with that on the weekend. Here's another one, trying to help you understand. It was actually Dr. Weiss that I first heard this from, but he said it's like when you act out in your addiction, your porn, masturbation, orgasm cycle, and you break trust again. It's like you have a pistol, and you shoot your wife in the shoulder or whatever, and she's got a bullet in there, and you're still holding the smoking gun, as it were, and you're saying, honey, I'm sorry, here, let me help you. And she go, whoa, give me some space, because she's seeing you as the holding gun. And then when you relapse, you went pop again, and she took another one. The last one hadn't even healed, and she took another bullet, And then you're saying, well, listen, I'm really sorry. No, she says, don't say that because you shot me twice now. And you know, your comfort encouragement isn't encouragement because you're still holding the dang gun. And so sometimes that helps both her, that's how I feel, both you, I didn't see it that way, that I'm trying to ask her to, you know, kind of move on, you know, can't you forgive me? And you're holding the smoking gun that caused the hurt in the first place. You haven't dealt with the gun. Get rid of the gun out of your hand and show empty hands that you're not coming towards her with the same thing that's caused so much pain. The third illustration is she's in a boat with you, maybe like a rowboat or something, maybe a canoe, I don't know. Pick the one that mentally fits in your picture of you guys on a lake or whatever. And the boat goes over, and you both are forced to swim to survive. Life jackets were in the boat, but maybe not being worn because it felt like quite a safe little romantic getaway. Who knows? But what happens is your wife is struggling to make it. She's struggling to survive the boat turning upside down. She's not as good a swimmer as you. And she's coming up to the surface trying to get air. She's trying to make it. And she looks up, and you putting your hand on her head and shoving it down again. See, that's what it feels like to your wife when she's trying to come up for air and she hears more of the story because you've been doing progressive disclosure. You say, that's everything. And then she finds out there's more. That's everything that she finds out there's more. That's like you pushing her head back under when she's trying to survive. And so you can imagine her disillusionment when you're saying all these things, let me help you, but then what you do ends up pushing her down again. Now, those three illustrations, whether it's the car accident, the gun, or the drowning situation, none of those are fun to hear. But this, you know, when we say that boys make excuses and men make changes, we say that because there has to be clear change of behavior. There has to be coming to grips with needing to be fully honest. No more living in the shadows, but coming clean. No more progressive disclosure, sharing it all. Let there be more of a surgery instead of minor surgeries that just keep opening up the same wound again. So finally, it just feels like she can't heal from the same kind of thing happening again and again. And if you haven't, it would be wise for you to watch the video Helping Her Heal. Helping Her Heal by Dr. Doug Weiss. And you can get it online for about, I don't know, $40 likely. I mean, if I have it both on DVD form and I also have it downloaded. I paid for it both ways, and in my private practice, I'm able to use it with my clients because I paid for it both ways. So those in the Fraser Valley area, if you wanted to come by and get a copy of that to watch, we could make that available. But for those of you who are out in the out regions, you may want to consider helping her heal, and incredible growth in awareness. So partner betrayal trauma is words that we use to identify your wife as partner has been betrayed by you and she's going through trauma, partner betrayal trauma. And it's a version of PTSD. that their same kind of responses as a person who's been in the military and in a war zone and has got, graphic visions of massive hurts and dismemberment and all that goes with the atrocities of war, and they have PTSD. So let me walk through some of the things. And remember, I recognize that you're at different places. I recognize that you're different places. Some of you are on a good roll and you're on a great trajectory. Your job then is to thank them for the grace they've extended you, because you just heard today all the different ways that you hurt them, and you want to thank them for their willingness to give you another try, that you want to keep asking them, is there anything else you can do? So those guys are in a better place. Great. Those guys that are single, my prayer that you say, I don't want to put my wife through that. I don't want to go there. Those pictures were too hard for me to imagine myself in that place. And those guys that are still in a tough place in their relationship, really be wise for just to be growing in awareness of what your choices will have done to your spouse. So here we go in no particular order. And just so you know, there are no notes in the handout. This particular talk is a talk that I'm revisiting, because this talk was done about 4 years ago, and I just really felt that there's enough newer guys here, that needed to hear this talk. And so you can go back to the talk by the same name, and you can get it off the website under recovery videos, what your addiction does to your spouse. So here they go. Betrayal. You see, by being incessantly lied to, incessant is repeatedly, over and over again, lied to, it creates a seriously, deeply broken trust. Your unfaithfulness to the marriage, whether it's the PMO cycle, remember, porn, masturbation, orgasm cycle, or whether you've even acted outside the marriage, the greater your lies, the greater your steps of unfaithfulness, the more she experiences this massive sense of betrayal. And just like the person in the car accident, where she has to recover, but it wasn't anything about her. She wasn't driving. She didn't ask for this. She even warned you, but she is forced to carry this. And so, you're the one that she trusted. She gave her heart to you, her life, and now this massive betrayal. And so there's just a lot of hesitancy to lean in and trust. Matter of fact, trust is broken. And she's basically kind of, no, don't come close. No, I don't know what I can, and she's lost it. Her whole relational equilibrium has been turned upside down, and just a deep sense of broken trust and betrayal, that you didn't love her well. So that's a starting point for realizing the scope of your impact starts with betrayal. The second thing is emotional disequilibrium. Now, emotional equilibrium means that she's balanced again, that she's on a good trajectory. But right now, with the discovery, and in some cases, the denial, minimization, progressive disclosure, and all poor ways that some guys try to come out of their addiction to try to, I don't want to hurt her, so I'm not going to tell her everything kind of attitude. And then in so doing, you end up hurting her more, because you're delaying being honest. But equilibrium would be that sense of balance. Well, she is emotionally dysregulated, emotionally disequilibrium. Things are all in an upheaval. And this trauma that they've gone through has caused unbelievable emotional and physiological pain. Like, I've had women talk to me and say, yeah, I actually have a physical pain in my chest. when I think about what he's done, when I think about this, I feel pain. It's not just emotional turmoil or psychological turmoil. It rolls right into physical pain. But you see, the emotional disequilibrium includes things like now there's stress, now there's worry, now there's doubt, certainly anger, feeling spent, feeling exhausted, feeling disgusted, feeling uncertain. Do I love you? Do I not love you? Do I trust you? Do I not trust you? How do I know if I can trust you? How do I know I can believe the words you're saying today because you lied so much? How do I know this is not just another lie? And she has all of this energy inside her is spent on these very, very, very difficult things. That was in the room on Friday night. As they were identifying some of the feelings they had, as they were identifying the way that it has impacted them. Her deep hurt has no easy fix. She's emotionally unstable. She's in shock. And it creates a huge amount of instability in her. And when we poorly pressure her to kind of work it through, can't you forgive me, those kind of things, you have no understanding and low awareness of what you have put her through and what you put her heart through. And by the way, if your wife's angry at you, that's a lot better than if she basically dismisses you and doesn't care. Anger still means she loves you, so hang on, but don't try to put out fires by just trying to say little glib things, kind of like start throwing a little bucket on the fire and think you put it out. Let her talk, let her express her frustration, but your choices have created an emotional strain on her that she has never experienced before, likely in any other crisis event, because you're the one that's supposed to be protecting, loving, honoring, cherishing her, and you are the one that's caused the greatest hurt in her life. Don't minimize her hurt. Don't try to explain it away. Work to listen. Work to understand, and for sure, work to take responsibility for the hurt that you've caused. So betrayal, emotional disequilibrium. Thirdly, the words rejection and insecurity. See, it's when the porn addiction or the sexual addiction comes out, she can't help but feel unloved, not treasured, unwanted, somehow inadequate, certainly compared. Many feel flawed. They might only feel pursued when you want sexual release, but there isn't much else going on because you're so preoccupied with your addiction. And so they feel this rejection that they're not really wanted, and it causes this deep insecurity. Insecurity about the relationship for sure, but it's also insecurity about who they are. And that's so unfair. See, when they read your acting out as a rejection of her, and then they were suspicious and you might even denied it, it turns out that the relationship that they thought was warm, and at least though it was some difficulties, was pleasant. It turns out that your commitment was a lie. It turns out that your words were not all that was going on. And because of that sense of rejection, that she's not somehow good enough, that you wanted something else, you wanted someone else, that what she had as far as her beauty was somehow inadequate because you were going elsewhere, even though it's not about her. Your addiction is about you. It predated her in most cases. but she can't help but feel rejection, and she will forever wonder whether she'll ever be loved by you. That somehow she's not good enough. And that is really hard for her to work through. Then she, fourthly, has all kinds of sexual barriers and sexual hurdles. Because as she maybe is at some point ready to be willing to go back to the bedroom, images of you acting out in whatever way flood her mind, and she gets triggered by those things, and she might envision you by the computer or with your phone. She might envision you at your office looking on the computer, and if you've acted outside the marriage, she envisions you with someone else. She envisions you, the place where you rendezvoused with somebody, whatever. And she has this massive amount of imagery in her mind of your unfaithfulness that does need to be healed, but so she feels set back, grossed out, a sense of, I don't want to go there with him. I don't want, and it's in her mind. She has these memories, and certainly a drop in her sexual confidence, and a drop in her sexual desire to be there, because she doesn't feel loved, and she doesn't want to go there, doesn't want to be close to you, because in her mind you desire to be close to someone else, be it a screen or another person, and so the whole sexual world becomes turned upside down, and is really, really hard for her to move beyond. And you say, well, I at least I didn't act outside the marriage. Well, for those guys who did, first of all, you got some work to do. But for those guys who didn't, if you're out in public, and your wife sees you doing the one up and down on the woman going by, like there can't be much more hurtful. And each of those things that you do that she notices or finds out later about, that you've acted out this way or that way, or she sees you in public or whatever, there's all kinds of hurdles that she has to work through to ever be intimate with you again. And she didn't ask for that. I mean, the sexual relationship in marriage is a little bit complicated for couples where there isn't any kind of sexual addiction going on, because it's two people having to come to agreement on something that is designed to be wonderfully, powerfully drawing together, and it gets complicated without an addiction. And so, yeah. Another aspect that sometimes people forget when they're coming out of the addiction, and I'm here, of course, to help you by reflecting where many of your wives, your spouses might be. The fifth one is shame and embarrassment. So she's been given this information. Who does she talk to? How does she heal from your mess? Like the car accident. She didn't ask for this, but she's in the ditch bleeding right now. But like some women, because men have acted outside the marriage, have had to go get an STD, an infectious disease test. Well, you want to talk about humiliating. Who does she tell? Now, some women carelessly just tell the world to punish you, which is hard for you especially, but it's not really that good for her either. But does she tell her parents? Does she tell your parents? She doesn't want this story. She doesn't want to have to tell anybody this story. She doesn't want to even tell her good friend this story. And even though she hasn't done anything wrong, sometimes she's partly implicated. And of course, she might even run into people that say stupid things like, well, I guess you got to pick it up in the bedroom, honey, because, he wouldn't be doing that if it wasn't for you. Well, that is a crock. That is a lie. but she feels very alone. She's embarrassed, carries shame. Just, I don't want this to be my story. I don't want this to be my story, but it is. And finally, and this is not an exhaustive list. It's a good list that you need to be aware of, but it's not exhaustive of understanding the damage you've caused your spouse through your addiction. The last one is it messes up their faith journey. Their faith kind of tanks. They're discouraged before God. Why would God allow this? Why wouldn't God have showed me this before I was married? So they feel betrayed by you, yes, but they also feel betrayed by God. And so they didn't sign up for this. Why would God? I had 2 women say this to me in the last week. Why would God have let me marry him if he knew this was going on? And so they're not only do they feel hurt by you, but they feel how somehow God has let them down. And so some women end up struggling in their faith and get really discouraged. And, what's the point? And I don't know, can God help me through this? I mean, he didn't help me prevent this. He didn't warn me about this. And some women say, well, yeah, I kind of did know that he was struggling here, but he said he was doing good. He said he was okay. He said this wasn't a problem. And it was. Why wouldn't I have, been spurred by God through his Holy Spirit to say, hey, no, you better ask some more questions to be sure in your heart to love this man. This woman ended up trusting, and she just feels like God has let her down. Well, that's tough because you don't want to be responsible for her spiritual demise. But many women, your addiction causes damage in the area of their faith. Now, if you are on a great trajectory with your spouse in recovery and you're making good progress ahead and you've got a growing unity happening, you will likely even recognize other things, other hurts that you caused. And you could sit here and add to this list. Currie, you forgot this one. You forgot this one. I noticed this in my wife. We worked it through. You see, if you're aware of these things, the hurts that you've caused, this list of things, if you're aware of this, then you'd be wise to be patient in her working through these things and be aware that these things exist. And you see, here is my experience. People who struggle with addiction are also addicted to lying because they're covering. So they can't stop lying. And in some cases, they can't or don't stop their addiction, but they keep lying to cover. That's very, very common to have a person who's sexually addicted also addicted to lying. But one of the other things that, and it's not really they're addicted to this, but the word might be oblivious to empathy. You see, the addiction is all about selfishness. When you lie to cover, that's all about selfishness. And empathy is the opposite of selfishness. Empathy is other-centeredness. It is looking at life through your wife's perspective. It's listening to this list here and going, oh my goodness, I forgot. I didn't realize how much pain that I'd cause. I didn't like to hear it, Currie, but thank you. Thank you for reminding me of what my addiction has done to her and the journey that she's on, that I sometimes kind of want her to pick it up and get over it quicker. But the best thing you can do is to grow in your ability to look at life through her eyes See, this is actually a gift for you to look at life through your partner's eyes, to realize that so much of your world was driven by selfishness. And it would be wonderful if your disclosure or even getting caught in your addiction and your turnaround also turned you around to be able to be an empathetic person, an other-centered person. But that does not happen without an extreme amount of surrender to Jesus and an awful lot of growing self-awareness and, frankly, a lot of work. Because deeply seated, innate selfishness is what kept the addiction going, kept the lies going, and your inability to empathize with what you're putting her through was massive. You were unable to realize because you didn't want to see it. See, when you start to build empathy, it's a commitment to spouse-centeredness. What is she going through? And rather than trying to fix it or explain it away or trying to quickly, well, don't you know, honey, that, and I've changed it. Don't be going there. When she's frustrated or in pain because of any of these things that I've listed, it's best to let her talk, to ask caring questions, to let her vent, to remind her again, I'm sorry, this is all about me. I'm sorry you have to go through this. I'm the one that rolled the car that caused all your injuries. But we have to be careful because so many of our actions, our statements, our attitudes, even our questions of her, all lead to one thing. It's still about you. And when it's still about you, you're still stuck in your addiction, at least the emotional, cognitive side of your addiction. You want her to heal so quickly. You want her to get over it. You want her to forgive you. You want her to stop being triggered. And you want to say things like, well, just trust me. I'm changed now. What do you expect me to do? And you kind of guilt her and pressure her. All these things are a reflection of lack of empathy and your self-centeredness. Sobering, I know. But boys make excuses and men make changes. And my prayer is that as you ask the Lord to not only deal with your addiction, to deal with your lying, but to deal with your selfishness and lack of empathy, and things will turn around. Things will turn around. I'll anchor this talk in just one verse, one passage in Philippians chapter 2. And it's verses 3 and 4. Do nothing, brothers, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Selfish ambition, I'm going to get over this quickly. I want her to get over it quickly. Vain conceit, wasn't that bad, and she's making a big deal of this. Yeah. Rather, in humility, that's a really good word. That means own your stuff, face your stuff, be honest, authentic. In humility, value others. In this case, value your wife above yourself. Really put her first. Goes on to say in verse 4 of Philippians 2, not looking onto your own interests, but each of you to the interests of the other. Prayer would be, Jesus, give me a growing awareness, a gut felt comprehensive awareness of what my choices put my wife through, and give me grace to own it, patience in her recovery journey, growing other-centeredness, and that, Lord, I may become the man that you want me to be, the person you want me to be. because as I understand the damage that I've caused to my spouse, I have personal recovery and I have a lot of recovery to do in the relationship so I can help her heal. My prayer in this sobering, reminding topic is that you would hear the nature of your partner's pain, walk into it, and stand in her pain, your partner's pain with them, and recognize that the healing will be a journey. It's not just a decision. May God give you courage to be men who love well.